Hello, I'm Henrique, the head of immigration at Portugalize. This means that I deal with everything related to visas, residency permits, and all the practical aspects of moving to Portugal. And with me, we have Manuel, the head of taxation at Portugalize. So, can you please introduce yourself?
I'm Manuel. I'm a Portuguese tax attorney. I overview taxation from the moment that people are starting to think about moving to Portugal. Tax planning is always best done in advance, and then also to help them structure themselves while they are in Portugal and complying with all of their obligations moving forward.
Thank you, Manuel. Today, we are talking about the IFICI, which is basically the replacement of the famous NHR. So, can you please tell me a bit about this IFICI's tax incentive?
I'll start by describing why is it associated with old NHR and why some people even call it the NHR 2.0. So the NHR is the non-habitual resident scheme. It was an incentive that was in Portugal for 10 to 15 years, and it just ended. 2024 was the last year to apply for the old NHR. It was an incentive for everyone. So anyone that wasn't a tax resident in the previous 5 years in Portugal could become a tax resident and apply for it. And it was one of the most powerful regimes in the Western world for people to go to live, because it included some special tax rates. For example, pension income was taxed at merely 10% flat. At the beginning of the incentive, it was even zero, but then it changed to 10%. And this opposes to what is normal progressive taxation in Portugal. The higher their income is, the higher their tax rate can be. It can go up to 48%, and this is not even counting the extra fees of solidarity that can go up to 5% extra on top of the 48%. So to have it flat at 10% was a big advantage, and then there was a flat 20% tax for highly qualified professions, both as for employees or for independent workers. And this is a big one that still maintains itself and carries itself into the new incentive. It was a full exemption on foreign income. So this covered sources like foreign capital gains, dividends, interest, rents. A lot of people, when they are coming to live to Portugal, their income sources remain abroad. So for most people, it meant that they just didn't pay any income tax when they moved to Portugal. Now, the new incentive keeps a lot of these advantages. It still has 20% flat tax for highly qualified professions. It no longer has the 10% for pension income because it's trying to attract a different public. I'm going to go through that in a bit. And then it maintains the foreign exemption, but now it includes foreign capital gains too. It didn't used to include those.
What's the difference between the IFICI and the old NHR? Because they seem to be really similar in terms of the advantages. So what actually changed?
What changed was that the original NHR had a flat tax rate for pension income. It was just 10%. Now that's no longer the case. Now pensions are taxed progressively. So this is not an incentive anymore looking to attract everyone. It is looking to attract people who are in their working age and are highly qualified. And then the second one is that foreign capital gains didn't used to be exempt, and now they are exempt as well. So it can be even better, even though it's more selective. You have to meet stricter requirements. You can also have bigger advantages. Now this opens the door for people who are, let's say you are a startup founder in the US, and the US is probably not the best example because they are taxed based on nationality as well. But let's say you have a startup in the UK, you move to Portugal before your exit, and when you sell the company, you will not be taxed on capital gains, neither in Portugal and in the UK. So it can be very powerful for those situations as well. Those are the differences in terms of incentives. In terms of applying, that's really where the biggest difference comes in, because it used to be that anyone could apply if they became a resident for the first time in Portugal, or if they weren't a resident in the previous 5 years, it could also apply for people who were coming back. And now they have to work for most of them, they have to work for a Portuguese company in a qualified sector. There are other ways that include being a board member of a Portuguese company, so you don't need to work per se, or you can be a researcher or professor in university, but for most people, it means that they will work for a Portuguese company.
Okay, Manuel, so this new IFICI is a recent tax incentive, right? Can you tell me about when did it started, if it's already approvals going on or not yet?
Tax incentive was introduced at the end of 2024 and regulated at the beginning of 2025. Even though it was possible for people to apply concerning 2024, they even had an extended deadline up to the end of March in that year, while the usual deadline is January 15th of the following year, where you become a tax resident. Not a lot of people applied for 2024. So the real first year, I would call it, is 2025, because people knew the rules from the beginning and had time to structure themselves according to these rules. Now, the deadline for application was January 15th of this year, 2026, and the deadline for receiving the results of the applications was just now, March 31st. The tax authorities waited until the last day to respond to everyone, created a lot of tension, but now we can proudly say that all of our applications got approved. And we are fully confident in these methods. And even though we were pretty confident before, because we knew the law and we thought that they would be strict in applying it and we will have the opportunity to complain if they weren't, it's always very reassuring to actually get those applications. So from these types of routes that we have talked about, we have made applications in all of them and already got approvals in all of them. So this means the employment in a Portuguese company that operates in a qualified sector. This means for the people who created their own companies and were directors of it, and for the people who decided to invest in a venture capital fund and got a board seat through their active participation on a certain startup. So we got approvals in all of these. We probably were some of the teams that did the most applications. We got them all through. Proud of that, and we're very happy to continue to do that, because now we know it used to be tricky, because people would ask us if we already got these applications approved. We were talking with very high confidence, but we didn't have any application actually approved for around 1 year. And now finally that's behind our backs. And now we, instead of being 99% sure, we are 100% sure that all of these structures work and that the tax authorities are being responsive, because that was also a concern. Portugal did this in the past, where they have legislated about their own deadlines to respond, didn't deliver, and then what can you do? Like, you can sue them, etc., but it will just be very inefficient. But no, they are complaining with the exact deadlines they set themselves up to. It's a well-oiled machine.
So it would be great if you could just give us a list of eligibility routes for this new incentive.
The most common routes by far is that, let's say you have an employment in a Portuguese company that operates in a qualified sector. Qualified sectors are extractive industries, transformative industries. So these are more common. These are real industrial facilities. But there are others that are more common for our clients, that are technology companies, editing companies, both film, music, etc., architecture related, engineering, some research and development, and some hospitality, but specifically hotels, and then also some medical professions. So if you got a job in a Portuguese company that operates in these sectors, you can qualify. What it means is that your salary will get taxed at a flat tax rate of 20%, as opposed to the progressive bracket, and you have this full exemption on any foreign income that you have. So if you have something as simple as an interest-generating savings account in your country of origin, it is now exempt from taxes in Portugal. Otherwise, you would pay 28%. That's a flat tax for that type of income in Portugal. This is one of the routes.
Yeah, because I would say, like, we have lots of clients that don't work for Portuguese entities, right? So what can be done for that?
This is the most common way for our clients to qualify. They can create their own Portuguese company. They create unipessoal LDA. It means that it's a limited liability company run by just one person. Just one person is a partner. They create this company. They are the directors of that company. So that means that they work for a qualified company. That company would have to be in a qualified sector of the ones that we've talked about. Very commonly, it's, let's say, a technology consulting company. That person, instead of being employed by their employer or providing services on their personal name, they can provide these services through the company to any of their clients, regardless of whether the clients are in Portugal or outside of Portugal, in many different countries. If they have just one client or if they have 10 different clients, they can just provide all of these services through the Portuguese company, and that will be good enough to qualify them because they are a director. Then another route that we have is that you can, if you have a board seat or if you work for a Portuguese qualified startup, this means that it's a startup that was recognized by the startup agency and that its innovative potential was deemed valuable. If they work for one of these startups, then they can also qualify. What we did was that we have a partnership with a venture capital fund. They have their own startups, and if you can add value to one of their startups, it can be discussed on a way to structure an investment in that venture capital fund or in the specific startup, and then you can get a board seat in one of those startups, and that could also qualify you.
That's pretty interesting. But what are the type of clients that go through that route?
In this case, it offers a competitive advantage compared to the other routes, which is that the other routes normally require that you have at least level 5 of the European framework of qualifications. This means that you at least had some college education. Maybe you haven't finished, and that would be level 5, but you still have a diploma. That could be okay. Or maybe you have an actual bachelor degree, that would be level 6, or you have a master, that would be level 7, or you have a PhD, and that would be level 8. This startup route, it doesn't require that you have any of these qualifications. So we've had a lot of clients who are very successful people of the entrepreneurial types, and they didn't went through formal education. So this is a way that they could qualify, and it's perhaps even more relevant to them because they are the ones that are going to benefit the most from the exemption on foreign capital gains, dividends, etc. Because it probably means that they have their companies abroad in the place that they came from, and they can still take out dividends from those companies, or they can sell a company, and that would all be exempt. They just have to be willing to make this investment in most of the cases, but that is something that we can go a little bit more in depth in an intro call or in a tax consultation, and we can talk about how to specifically structure their investments, and we can schedule a meeting with a venture capital fund or with a startup itself to see if they could be a good match for that startup. So these are the most common types. Other types of people is regardless of their qualifications, even if they will have the qualifications to open the company in Portugal, they are just not actively working right now. So they are not interested in opening their own company in Portugal. Maybe they are close to retired, maybe they have an employment contract, for example. So they want to benefit from this, but they are not willing to create their own company. So this is a much more passive way, because by being a board member, they may have to attend some quarterly meetings or annual meetings, but they don't have to spend every day working for the company. It's a more passive way to also get this incentive that is meant for people who are.
But that's really good. My mind got stuck on the fact that a founder that is exiting a company through this route can save millions, right? If they are selling the company in their country of origin, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the European countries can take half of your proceeds. So you may have been working for years without taking anything from the company, trying your best to grow it and to make it valuable and desirable for someone that's acquiring it. And when your payday comes 5, 10 years later, 15 years later, and then you lose half at that point. And that can be very painful financially. So yeah, that's a very unique proposal that Portugal does to attract these successful entrepreneurs. So they can become a resident here, and then Portugal will not tax them for this exit.
In my opinion, it seems that this new incentive is more balanced, right? Because it's focused on attracting highly successful people, and that can bring the country forward, as opposed to the NHR, which was like way more open and everyone could come in. Thank you, that was really good. I think you left pretty clear what are the routes to qualify for this new IFICI, or as some people call it, the NHR 2.0. So thank you for that. And thank you to our listeners and everyone that's watching us. If you need any sort of tax support in the country, feel free to reach out to us and book an intro call or a tax consultation.